for all this memory. It's plausible. We just, and whether there's a way that someone will invent someday to be able to extract information from that, or like the cytometry, like you were saying. Uh, I've seen like Jennifer pick up a book and not know who the author is, and say the author is sick, and the person next to her says, "Do you know who the author is?" No, yeah, the author is sick right now. They got this thing, and she was just able to pick it up, just like that.
Yeah.
Just a little piece of information.
Tuning in. Well, the amazing thing to me is how interconnected like all of humanity is. And if you think about the shirt you're wearing on your back right this second, do you think were involved in getting your shirt on your back today? Like, I would argue it's no less than 1 million. Impossibly less than 1 million. It couldn't be, right? So there's the person that sold it to you in the store. There's the person that maybe put it on the shelf. There's the person that unloaded it off the truck. There's the person who drove the truck. There's the person who loaded it onto that truck. There's the person who designed it. There's the farmer who grew the cotton. There's the designer who thought up the design. There's the manufacturer. There's the person that built the machine that manufactured the shirt, the person that designed that, and so on. And like suddenly you are spider webbing all over the world, right? From farms maybe in like Malaysia to dyes that were culled from Africa to a manufacturing plant maybe in the US, maybe in China, whatever, and like so many human beings went into just putting your shirt on your back, and we're all connected just from your shirt. And we're all wearing clothes except me. Right, so we're all wearing some kind of clothes, and we all have that interconnectedness from all over, and that's really incredible. And to me, these stories remind us of that. These haunts, these stories, these legends. When you go into a haunted building, you're not just connecting with the building and with the people that live or work there right now. You're connecting with all the people that were there before and came and went and left some kind of mark. And that becomes a huge network of human beings from your own community or from foreign travelers who came there, all kinds of people. And that's just talking about one individual building. And so to me, it makes sense. I mean, we are animals after all. We can sense water. We can sense fear. We can sense all kinds of things because that's what makes us successful as a species. And so we have this ability to reach out and connect with each other. And to me, I don't see that much of a leap between connecting with a living human being and connecting with a person that was there even a century ago.
All right. So we're at the top of the hour.
And it's time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe Radio, and we'll be right back with our guest.
NPR podcasts are now available on every platform. Check out all our shows at npr.org/podcasts. That's npr.org/podcasts.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Speer. U.S. employers added more than 300,000 jobs last month, far outpacing what most forecasters had anticipated. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the latest snapshot from the Labor Department suggests the economy is off to a strong start in 2019.
U.S. employers have been expanding their payrolls for a record 100 months in a row. And despite low unemployment, there's no sign the job market is cooling off. On the contrary, White House economist Kevin Hassett says the pace of job gains has steadily increased for the last 3 months.
We're seeing signs of an accelerating economy right now, which is astonishing given that it's 100 months in.
The partial government shutdown did cause a temporary jump in the unemployment rate to a still low 4%. Average wages have grown over the last year by more than 3%. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Taiwanese tech company Foxconn now says the factory it's building in Wisconsin will be a manufacturing plant after all. Marty Michelson from member station WWM in Milwaukee reports the latest development comes after President Trump spoke with Foxconn officials.
The news comes after a week of confusion about Foxconn's plans for Wisconsin, its first plant in the U.S. The Taiwanese electronics giant is building a huge facility near the Illinois border after signing a contract with the state to mostly manufacture LCD screens at the plant. Then earlier this week, Foxconn said it planned to shift the focus of the plant to mostly research and development jobs instead of manufacturing. It cited a changing global marketplace for the change in plans. Now Foxconn says after a personal conversation between President Trump and Foxconn CEO Terry Gou, it plans to proceed with the LCD screen manufacturing operation. For NPR News, I'm Marty Michelson in Milwaukee.
Today's announcement by President Trump, the U.S. is withdrawing from an intermediate-range nuclear forces treaty due to alleged Russian non-compliance, has set off a firestorm of reactions from Moscow. Russian politicians are blaming the U.S. for undermining global security by ending compliance with the deal. Each blames the other. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance has to assess the consequences of the breakdown.
This is a very serious issue, and we need to make sure that we respond as an alliance, all 29 allies, because all allies are involved and all allies are affected.
The U.S. says it will stop observing the treaty this weekend and withdraw within 6 months. Russia has condemned the U.S. move. Spending on construction edged up in November with a gain in home building, hoping to offset some weakness in the non-residential sector. Commerce Department reporting today construction spending rose 0.8% after a 0.1% rise the previous month. A mixed close at week's end on Wall Street. The Dow was up 64 points. The Nasdaq closed down 17 points today. You're listening to NPR. Iran is celebrating the 40th anniversary of its Islamic revolution that helped topple the U.S.-backed Shah, the event overturning 2,500 years of monarchical rule in that country, which brought hardline Shiite clerics to power there. The anniversary is marked each year on the day the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini in 1979 returned to the country from France after 14 years of exile, become the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran. China is greeting the Lunar New Year with celebrations and a historic travel rush this weekend. NPR's Rob Schmitz has more from Shanghai.
It's the time of year when people reunite with family near and far, and this year Chinese citizens will make an estimated 3 billion trips throughout the country. The Year of the Dog will make way for the Year of the Pig in the 12-year Chinese astrological cycle next Tuesday on New Year's Day. The holiday is the most important in the Chinese calendar, a time for people to return to their hometowns, to reunite with family and friends. On New Year's Eve, people will gather for reunion dinners, give each other hongbao or red packets of money, and light fireworks at midnight. That is, unless they live in Shanghai or Beijing, where fireworks are officially banned for safety reasons. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Shanghai.
Skier Lindsey Vonn says after this month's World Championships in Sweden, she will hang up her poles, at least at the professional level. Vonn, who's the women's all-time leader in World Cup wins, saying she'd been planning on waiting to December to retire, but due to persistent pain in both knees, says she'll now exit the sport after this month's events. Vonn writing on Instagram, calling it an emotional 2 weeks, saying retiring is, quote, the hardest decision of my life. I'm Jack Spear, NPR News, in Washington.
Did you know you can ask Google Home to play NPR podcasts for you? It's easy. Just ask. Like, play the Fresh Air podcast. Use Google Home or Google Assistant to connect with your favorite shows anytime.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
And we're back. But you say that.
Are we back?
We are.
All righty. Hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Also heard on the Rift Radio Network out of Lakeside, Virginia, and WCET-FM and affiliates out of Columbia, South Carolina. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, and we're coming to you from the frozen tundra of northern Wisconsin here at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center in Rylander. And we have paranormal historian Jeff Belanger with us today. I'm going to take 30 seconds before we get back to him and tell you you can always enjoy excellent fringe talk radio and awesome informative radio shows about the paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, and Fortean topics on our network and affiliate platform websites. Not only our show, but there's many good shows on these networks about different facets of the unknown and unexplained, much to listen to and much to enjoy. Stream live on TuneIn's, iTunes, and the Paranormal Livestream app, available from Android app and the iTunes Store. Okay, so this segment is brought to you by the Supernatural magazine, excuse me, where our articles can be found. So we have just a few minutes left with Jeff before he needs to leave, as we got a late start today. And so I think what we'll do is we should talk about your books a little bit. We were going to do the haunted list. But
Come on, let's do a few. Come on. They're probably in some of my books
we
anyway.
can do that.
Yeah, we have to. We totally have to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
All righty. So how about a okay, let's start with Danvers.
Yeah, Danvers Asylum. That's Danvers, Massachusetts. It's just northwest of Boston. And it's like so many of these old asylums, the stories are so similar all across the country where, we used to treat people with mental disabilities pretty badly in this country. We would put them in jail. We would lock them up, would keep them out of sight. And these asylums, this guy named Kirkbride comes along and builds these wonderful sprawling campuses. Danvers was one of them. And over time, they get overcrowded and they get underfunded. And suddenly the conditions get bad. And treatments like electroshock therapy and ice water baths, the ice pick lobotomies, these kinds of things are cutting edge at the time, but seem barbaric today. And eventually it shut down, and they filmed a horror movie there called Session 9, which is actually a pretty good horror movie if you like the genre, and I do. It's not the most mainstream film, but I think you can find it out there somewhere. And while they were filming it, all kinds of strange things was happening inside these old buildings, and they realized this is a ghost movie about a really, truly haunted building. It's mostly been torn down and turned into condos. So I guess you can think about that if you want to go get a condo there at the old Danvers Asylum.
Isn't there a couple buildings standing yet and a cemetery still?
The cemetery is still there, and there's a couple buildings, but it's pretty much turned into very modern condos. There's nothing really left to see from the old days. Yeah, it's mostly condos.
And I gotta wonder if they're gonna ever experience anything out there.
Yeah, so I've given talks all around that area, and people have told me, like, oh, I've got a friend that's got a condo there. And I'm like, is it haunted? Have you had any activity, anything? And he's like, no, but I'll ask. So we'll see.
Yeah. That was like that with Linda Vista Hospital. They turned that into condos or assisted living or something.
They called it was an assisted living.
Yeah, and that's L.A. And that story, what I thought was incredible. So, okay, the urban legend about the business traveler who meets some sultry vixen at the bar, and then suddenly his drink is roofied. Next thing you know, he wakes up in a bathtub full of ice and his kidney's missing. Right, like right. The organ has been harvested for the black market for someone who needs a kidney transplant or something, and so that sounds like to the point where if you go to the website of the organ donor website, they list there like this is an urban legend. It doesn't really happen, and you say that, but then you go, but there's places like Linda Vista, which was really, that was you didn't want to end up at Linda Vista if you could help it. And, stories about like Jane Does and John Does that were brought in and possibly had their organs harvested, maybe prematurely, for people that could actually use them in nearby hospitals. And these were people that nobody wanted, right? Like drug dealers and prostitutes and street people who no one had any care about that got in there for some life-threatening reason, and then maybe didn't get the best of care because they were seen as more valuable for their parts than the whole. So those kind of stories came out of there, and that place was dark. But I also understand real estate will go on. So assisted living, enjoy.
Right. Lizzie Borden, back in breakfast.
Yes, Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. And that's what us sick people here in Massachusetts raise our kids on, that nursery rhyme, And that was the trial of the century back in the 1890s. And Lizzie was acquitted mainly because the all-male jury figured there's no way a woman could do something like that. And all I could think of is like, that all-male jury must not have known too many women. Pretty much every woman I know could do that and would. It's this gruesome story of a double murder that is unsolved to this day, and no one was ever punished for it. And that haunts us. And when you walk in there today, and they've taken great pains to make it look exactly as it did back in the early 1890s, to the point where they've got crime scene photos on the wall and things like that. When you walk through that and you experience it, you're just like, oh my God, I'm back there. I'm there right